What's going on, guys? It's Coach Steven with 15 Points of Tennis. And while the small muscles like the forearm give you that snap of the wrist for racket speed to hit the ball fast, it's really your big muscles that give you the power and mass to hit a heavy ball with weight and stability. Now, your rotation from your big muscles, generates so much potential energy and sets your swing in motion. So today we're going to discuss the essentials of rotation, both upper body rotation, lower body rotation, but also help you understand when too much of a good thing can become counterproductive and destructive. So before we begin, take a second to hit that subscribe button, all right, and make sure to stay to the end of the video where we're going to show you how to practice rotation, internalize it in drills, get it to feel second nature. Now, when it comes to rotation, it's utmost important to maintain a straight axis. Think of, tetherball or the earth rotating. Anything that spins revolves around a center point. So as you swing, you should imagine an imaginary pull from the top of your neck to your tailbone. This right here is your axis of rotation that keeps you straight, right? Now, what will impede that rotation is, the biggest culprit is leaning as you hit like this, throws your rotation off. Also, bad posture in general. Some players on low balls, they start arching, they bend their back low like this, which bends their spine. And some players, as they hit, they'll pull up with their chest at contact, arching their back, bending their spine, which impedes rotation as well. I'm sure at some point a coach has told you, keep your heads as still as possible as you swing. The reason why is your head is the heaviest part of your body, and thus if your head moves, look, it throws off my center of balance, and thus my axis of rotation, okay? So it's totally fine, look, to be tilted at the hips, okay, to keep a straight axis here as I rotate, but you got to keep your head still as you hit, so you have as little friction as possible. There are drills you can do, but this largely comes down to a lot of repetition keeping your head still. You have to watch the ball extremely carefully, because if you don't get your spacing right, you're going to be leaning and pulling off the ball with your head. Watch my spine and axis of rotation. It really reduces that friction when I rotate hard. This, again, keeping your head still is so foundational to having great strokes. Let's start with the upper body, guys, work our way down. So the arms help the shoulders get turned here, especially when you hit your forehands, that non-hitting arm out and extend to get turned. Now this is very similar to how an ice skater prepares for a big jump, okay? The arms getting out here are for balance and stability, okay? But when turning, that skater withdraws those arms inward to increase rotational speed via the conservation of angular momentum. So it's going to look like this for balance and stability, and then speed, right, to pull in. So when you're hitting your strokes, look, again, use that to get turned, and just right before contact, it's going to pull in and tuck right here for rotational speed. Obviously in sync with the ball. Now to take this one step further, all right, look, your shoulders are interconnected, so whatever you do to the left affects the right, vice versa. What some players do is you can take that extended arm and twist and invert that hand back. See how my palm is facing my target or my opponent? So by twisting back, see how I get my shoulders even more coiled here? All right. You see that very commonly on the serve as well. You see that twisting of the hand back. You see that palm faces the target. Not all of the pros do this. Not all the players do this. But definitely something to keep in mind, something to consider. Here's an example of not getting that left palm turned facing your opponent. And look, as long as you're getting that left arm across your body, you are getting your shoulders turned back. But I understand the flip side, and you'll have to play around with it. When you watch this series of forehands, look how he gets that palm facing the target, inverting it. Just a touch more coil. All right.
If you look at Dominic Thiem, he very much so gets that palm facing the target every single time. But it's not always the case. You see a lot of players, they'll at least get that palm just facing the ground. And sometimes you don't want to overdo it. Again, you'll have to play around and experiment with it. A guy like Andy Murray, as you can see, he keeps that palm up most of the time and then gets it down at the last second, but nothing extreme. But I know the 1%ers do add up, and what you'll see every time on Sampras' serve is that inverted left hand.
As simple as this sounds, guys, getting turned halfway is different from getting turned all the way. A lot of players think they're getting turned all the way, but they're not. All right. So a good rule of thumb is when I get turned, backhand or forehand, my opponent, being you should be able to see a sliver of my back hair. That's regardless of whether I hit closed stance here, looking over my shoulder, or whether I hit open stance here. This is a full turn. All right. So again, half turn, full turn. Unless the ball is literally coming so fast, you can't get turned all the way. Now this makes the biggest difference when it comes to hitting cross court versus up the line. Okay, when I hit the ball across court, my contact point is going to be further out in front of me in order to get the strings angled. But you see how much further out in front of me it is compared to when I hit up the line. I need to get the strings facing up the line. My contact point is going to be much further back and to the side. So out here for cross court, back here for up the line. So if I only get a half turn and I'm hitting cross court, I can still build some decent momentum from here to here to get some power into the ball. Okay, but if I only get half turn, I have literally no power from here to here to turn into the ball going up the line. So for up the line, I need to get turned here, right, or here. Again, so it's going to be, this is okay for cross court. Up the line's got to be here, right? And that makes a big difference to build momentum up until your contact point.
Focus on exclusively my shoulder turn as I hit these cross courts. Now, what I call this is a half shoulder turn. Okay, and I can still build up some decent momentum until contact. So this looks like a pretty good shot for cross court. But now on this next ball, I'm going to take it up the line. There's not enough space to turn. This ball is weak. Unless I'm deflecting pace, this is not an optimal punish up the line compared to turning my shoulders all the way, as you're going to see on these next 3 hits. This is a punishing shot up the line. It's not the easiest to demo in points, but hitting the ball inside out, you're taking the ball so far back in your strike zone, you've really got to get those shoulders turned all the way. In this sequence, you're going to see me go cross court and then get a little extra turn for the line.
Now something tricky that the pros can do at a very high level is they can use that little extra shoulder turn to fake their opponent that they're going to hit up the line. But if their opponent overreads them with extra shoulder turn, then they'll at the last second pull the ball cross court. I'm not a pro. I can't do it consciously or on command, but just some food for thought when you're out there playing.
In this case, I either got lucky or he guessed, but I've seen this consciously executed at a higher level.
Now, although we want as much rotational power as possible, we have to be very wary and cautious of something called over-rotation. And the question here is, how far are you allowed to rotate? The answer, you're only allowed to rotate as far as the direction your front toe is facing. So let's say I'm going to hit a backhand here. Let's say my front toe is facing the side fence on this side. How far can I rotate? I can only rotate up to here, where my front toe is facing. What happens if I try to rotate further than this point of where my front toe is facing? If I try to rotate all the way through, see how this hip knocks me off balance one more time? It knocks me off balance when I swing. What's the solution to that? Well, on the setup, okay, and we're going to talk more about how the feet control the hips in the future video, But this front toe needs to be angled diagonal, right? Now I'm facing the net post, maybe even a little bit of that net. Now when I shift and rotate, I can clear this hip and finish my shot on balance. Now what if I'm getting pushed out wide and hitting a closed stance? Oftentimes on the backhand forehand, you can just hit open stance a little bit more easily. But if I'm pushed out wide and I'm forced to hit a closed stance where I step over and across my body, so my front toe is facing diagonally, to the side fence, the solution here is for me to hit and then I have to step over. So watch this foot. I have to step over and pivot, okay, so I can clear that hip. Make sure that you do not step and hit at the same time like this, okay? That's incorrect. You want to swing and let the momentum carry you around and pivot after. So you're going to hit and then step. So again, to summarize, the ball that's stationary coming up the middle, you get that toe diagonal, clear the hip, ball out wide with a close stance, you're going to hit and step over.
Here I want your eyes focused on my front foot. My right toe is facing that side fence, and this is not a recipe for an effective backhand. Sure, I can get the ball in, but I'm getting thrown off balance. Ideally, look, when that toe is facing that net post, it's diagonal now, I can finish with great balance, hold my shot, and complete my rotation through. Cross court, that toe might even need to be more open. Here up close, you can see my right hip. Look, that right hip is locked. I'm going to open that hip. It makes all the difference in the world. It does depend on some of your hip flexibility though. While we're zoomed in, let's take a look at the step over. And you're going to let the residual momentum from your racket carry you around. So actually at contact, guys, at contact, your right toe will face a target, but it will pivot over after you make contact. So hit and then pivot. It should just be like you're hitting and stepping over with the same rhythm that you're walking, but you've got to be very careful. Don't overrun the ball because you need to keep your space and distance. So as you make contact, you're moving through the shot. So here's a few great stationary backhands with that front hip nice and open so it can really complete that rotation through. Next you're going to see in this point that step over backhand again, leaving space and stepping through. My momentum is moving through the ball. It makes all the difference in the world. Now I understand that there are more footworks than the two we showed you here, but the concept of your feet unlocking and locking the hips are fundamental for every shot you hit.
Now, how does this all work with the kinetic chain? A lot of players misconstrue rotation as this really big movement from here to here, right? But what if I threw a punch like that in boxing, right, from like that, okay? I actually wouldn't have very much power, quite literally. I'd much rather punch like like that, boom, right there. So, guys, rotation is actually a very short movement just from here to here. It's not this big movement like this, okay? I talk about this more in the online program and the cracking the whip video, but look, as your body doesn't hit the ball, it's your hand that hits the ball. So I need to figure out how to get all the energy from my body, okay, into my arm, into my hand, which is the tip of the whip. Okay, but if I go like this and over rotate or keep rotating as I hit, all the energy, is stuck in my body. So there's a point where I have to rotate and stop. You see, rotate and stop to let the energy transfer to the tip right here. So as I make contact with the ball, my hips are still. Rotation prior to contact, they're still at contact.
I'm going to exaggerate what I commonly see players do. Even if it's on a small scale, they're losing power because you're putting so much energy into your swing and so little of that is transferring into the ball. And you might be wondering, well, how do I get all this stored energy into the ball? Okay, and just like that gut punch in boxing I showed you at the beginning of this section, I'm rotating my hips and stopping my rotation so the tip of the racket can whip through. Right now I'm rotating really, really hard, but it just doesn't look like it because I'm using my muscles to hold me in place so I don't lose my balance. Now you might think, well, this guy has a two-handed forehand. You might just have a really compact stroke. No, this same principle of rotation applies to every stroke. And we'll teach you in a separate video how to take a bigger windup and rail the ball. But same thing for, a traditional forehand. Okay, that rotation is short and powerful. If you want to develop any type of, refine any type of kinetic chain, you've got to learn how to be able to elongate and shorten the different parts of the kinetic chain. Again, to focus energy right at contact.
So when I hit my close stance, look, it's just from here to here rotation. Then as I swing, there's just so much residual momentum that a lot of times it carries me around as I step over. If you're hitting an open stance, say quite often on the forehand, it's okay to keep your hips rotating with your body as one unit as you jump and turn like this. But it's very different if your hips are accelerating as you make contact or pulling you off the ball. Okay, we'll talk about this more about about jumping and turning in the air, but this has to stay as one unit.
On the same theme of hips still, okay, on the ground it's a little easier. When in the air they have the tendency to fly out, okay, and lose power like we just saw in the previous demo. Okay, so watch closely. This first forehand hips do a great job firing and then staying still at contact, but now they're flailing in the air, which is what commonly happens. So when you're in the air, your body has to rotate as one unit like he just did. Again, short but rotating as one unit. This will be the main topic of part 3, but just remember, until then, your hips can be rotating in the air, you just can't be firing in the air.
Now I want to leave you with some tools to really help you practice rotation. And if you recall from the video of loading the lower body, we talked about how knee bend helps you stay in rhythm with the ball vertically, okay? Rotating, on the other hand, keeps you in rhythm with the ball horizontally. And the best way to practice that is with the swivel boards, okay? So as you hit, right, you should feel this twist back and this spring out of the twist. So like twist and then spring, twist and then spring. So get that timing right in sync with the ball. Also note that, watch my feet. My feet need to pivot back and forward together as I hit. Back, forward, in sync with the ball as well, but together as one unit. And I talked about in the video on the volley, okay, when we make this unit turn here, okay, your arm does not go back like this. This is slow. This is a slow movement. What takes me back with my turn is my feet, hips, and shoulders, right here, and then I can take a bigger backswing after, but right here, all right?
I like how I caught this first shot, but when using balance boards, you never have to tell your student to 1, balance, or 2, stop over rotating. It's going to fix itself. I'll put the balance boards on the link in the description below on Amazon. As a coach, you should definitely get it. And the more he does this, the smoother he's going to get. But make sure you're watching that the feet are turning with the hips, with the shoulders, all in sync together.
You also need to strengthen the muscles that help you turn. One of the best ways to do that we'll show you is with the medicine ball, making sure that you're turning, again, from that center point here. There are different muscles in the abdomen, some of which, like the obliques, are used to create more motion to turn, but there are other muscles that are meant to be stabilizers. So like, even though I'm not rotating like this at contact, I'm still engaging my core to keep my body still as I hit, all right? So you need the speed to turn here, boom, make this quick turn, but also the strength so your arm doesn't completely get flop and like disconnect from your body like this. So on that note, okay, where you contact the ball matters. If you contact the ball actually a little closer to your body like this, okay, here or here, you'll actually have a little bit more stability, and it's easier to feel your core strength when the ball is a little closer to you. Okay, just imagine like a two-handed stroke, you can really feel yourself turning from that core. When you hit the ball further away from your body, here, or here, you know, a lot more one-handed strokes, yes, you have a lot more leverage, so you can just rail the ball and create more pace from out here, but it does take a lot more core work to really keep this connection to your core and stabilize that contact. So pros and cons to play around with, again, something to keep in mind. So we're going to wrap that video on this note. We have so much more stuff coming in parts 2 and 3. This is just the beginning. Hope you enjoyed this one so we can get started on working on the material here. Look forward to your comments, and we'll see you guys soon on the next episode.